Hey, welcome back to a new video. To start off, I do want to mention this is a part 2 of a previous video about making a door system. So I'm continuing where we left off in the previous video. So where we left off is that we just made a default door where you can set it on locked mode and you can unlock it again. And it just opens without the need of using a key. So in this video, we're going to be making the key system, a widget to prompt the player when you pick up a key itself. So yeah, let's get started on it. So to start off, we're going to be making the logic in the door first, because that will check if you have the correct key or not. So we're going to go into functions, and then we're going to add a function. I'm going to call it search for key. What this is going to do, this is going to loop to an index. We'll later add on the interaction component to check if the keys you've picked up match the correct integer ID of the designated for the specific door you want to open. So on this, we're going to add an input, and we'll call this keys, which will be of type integer, and then an array. So out of that, we want to use a for each loop. What this does is it's going to loop through each single index in the array, so it's going to check every single ID we have stored in there. After that, we're going to drag out and then straighten it a bit. And then we want to check if it's matching the correct ID for this door. So we're going to drag out on this one. There's a promote to variable, and we're going to call it key ID, or you can just call it key, whatever you prefer. I'm going to make it instant editable, and I'm going to add it so it matches with this here, with the structure. This will be settings, so we're going to, this is some type of setting you will set to the door. If it's locked, you want to also immediately have the key ID designated, or not a key if you prefer to do it, open it with code, for example, which is also possible. So after this, we want to make a new variable, and we'll call it b is key found, which means when looping through this array, did we even find the key? If it's true, that means the key ID matches with the one that we have stored. So we're going to set it to true, and we're going to make it a break. So I just noticed we didn't have for each loop word break, because we want to stop the loop when we find it. So let's say you have 20 keys in there, and it finds it on the second loop. Yeah, it's going to keep continuing, which is not very optimized. So we do want to stop the loop and just continue with opening the door logic. So I'm going to make a nice reroute node and attach it to break and move it a bit up like so. So it looks nice and tidy. And then when we found the correct one, we're going to use a return node, and then we're going to drag out b is key found and compile. Make sure this is set to false by default, so it doesn't find it by default even if it didn't find it. You can leave the false as is, so it will always be false except if it turns it sets to true. So let's get back to the logic here. When it's locked true, we now have only playing the animation of when it's trying to force to open. So we're gonna remove this one for now. And we're gonna drag out the newly made function, which is called search for key. And then I'm gonna make this a collapse node. This is key logic. I'm gonna open it so it looks a bit better. Drag this out. So on this, yeah, we need to get the key ID that's stored either in the player or in this case, and it's going to be in the interaction component. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go to components, BP interaction. I'm going to add the variable, and I call this keys, which is an integer array. So I'm going to show you a trick as well to easily call your interaction component in any blueprint you like. So what you're going to do, I'm going to go back to blueprints, interfaces. I'm going to make a new interface, and we're going to call it bpi underscore get components. And with this one, the first one's going to be get interaction component, like so. And then on output, we're going to get the interaction component. of type BPC underscore interaction, like so. So now what we're going to do on the player where we have the component added right here, we're going to add this, which is this one right here. So we're going to add a new interface, BPI get components. And now you can see it says interaction components. So what we're going to do, we're going to drag in interaction component and attach it like so. But we're still not able to call it since we don't have the function set up that gets the component. So to make this easier for us, we're going to make a function library where we're going to add a function that retrieves this from the player. So to keep the logic good, we're going to go back to blueprints, your widget interfaces, and we're going to make a new folder called library. I'm going to right click blueprints, blueprint function library. I'm going to call it BFL underscore library. I'm going to open it. And this is, we're going to call it get interaction component, like so. And straight out of here, I want to call get interaction component message, like so. And then what you want to do, you need a target here. So since we added it on the player, you want to get player character, which is this one. And I'm going to add it here. And then this, all you need to do is add this to the return node and attach this interaction component. What I suggest you do is click on pure. And now if you've compiled and saved it, and we are going towards the door, we're gonna type get interaction component. You see here BFL library, get interaction component, and now you can drag out keys. So now you can get the keys everywhere in any blueprint you want. And all you have to do is attach it like so. And then you want to have a branch. So you want to check if we find the key or not. So if we found the key, you want to unlock the door, which is for now the sound that we've made before. So if you go back to the event graph, we have a sound called unlock door. So on true, we say unlock door. And then I want to add a small delay on it, so it doesn't immediately play the open sound. So it first plays the unlock sound, and then after, I think 0.3, we want to set, we want to play the open door sound. So after the delay, what you want to do is drag out B is locked. So you want to set the lock to false, because if you set it, you keep it on true, it's gonna keep playing the unlock and open sound, which you don't want to do. So also we're going to add this on input here, and I'm going to call this true, which means we have found the key and we have unlocked the door. If it's false, it means it didn't find the key when looping through it. We want to play the force to open, so it's called force to open, which is, this is the sound, so that's not correct. We can check what the name was, which is force open lock door. So all you need to do is here is say force to open, force open lock door. And it's gonna play this sequence, which means you haven't found the key. So it then just says it's locked and you get play the animation for it. So if we go back on true, you wanna move this down a little bit and then continue. So we have successfully unlocked the door, and then we want to continue with the loop. So it checks if it's playing, checks for closing, and then plays everything else that we've made before. So, and for a key system to work, we need to make a key. So this will be the next step. So let's do that. Go back to blueprints, actors, door, and I'm going to make a new blueprint class, which I'm going to call BP underscore key. And we're going to open it straight away. The key is fairly simple. We're just going to add an interaction interface, then immediately on interact, we're gonna add, we would normally add the widget, so we're gonna make that afterwards. We're gonna get interaction component that we've just made. We're gonna get keys, and then say add. So we want to add, when we pick it up, we want to add it to the array. And then the integer we're adding is going to be on here, which we're going to call key ID, of type integer, and this is non-array, this is just a normal. And then afterwards you want to play a sound, in this case like that you pick up the key itself, and I think I named it key jiggle. And then afterwards you want to destroy the actor, so the key is no longer in the scene. Oh, I did forget to make a static mesh in here, which will be displaying the actual key mesh. And let me also import the key, make a new folder. So you don't have a mesh folder, so I'm going to right click, meshes, open it. We're going to say keys, or key since it's only one for now, import fbx file. Looks good. Sure, I selected it like so. Now we can drag it in. We make a small plateau where I can put the key on. It's easy to reach. Like so. We're gonna drag the key onto it. Right here. Perfect. So now we need to make the IDs, which is just using one and make sure it's set to locked, otherwise it won't fire. And for this one, I didn't make it into editable, like so. Which means if it doesn't match, it's not gonna work. So I'll show you what happens if you do 2 instead of 1. Then in theory, it should not work. You see, I have key ID 2 and door needs 1, so it won't open. When I use 1, it should now open and unlock the door, or lock and open the door, like so. As easy as that. But also when I pick up the key, I do want to have some kind of notification that tells me you've picked up this key, instead of just destroying the key and don't display anything. So we're going to make a new widget for that as well. Go to blueprints, widgets, and then user interface, widget blueprint. I'm going to call it WB underscore popup, since it's a popup that will be on the screen for a certain amount of time. I'm going to open it. To start off, we're going to add a canvas panel, like so. On the canvas panel, we're going to add an overlay. And we're going to anchor it. Let me close this. And we're going to anchor it for the whole screen. So for offset right and bottom, just click on the arrow so it's full. And then offset right and bottom to 0 and 0. So it's fairly simple for this one. We're going to add a horizontal box in the overlay. We're going to center it to the middle and maybe just a little bit above it. So for the alignment, we're going to have this on 0. Slightly to the right, so minus 0.5. It's slightly, maybe less, minus 0.2. It's not on the edge exactly. And we're going to add an offset of like 2. So it's slightly, maybe a bit better, let's say 5. So it's not exactly in the middle as so. And on the horizontal box, let me rename this. This is called popup overlay. It's easier for you to read. This is the notify box, which we're going to display the text in here. So we're going to add a text block. We're going to add it into the notify box. Make sure it's set size to content so it fits nicely. And for the text, we're going to bind it so we can easily set it. I'm going to call it update text. I'm going to make a variable for it. I am going to call it action text, because it's going to be displaying action that we've just did. And compile and save. Now we can also already set up the animation, so make sure you select notify box, open the animation tab, click on new. I'm going to call this fade in, since it's going to be fading in from the left. Select it, add, and the first thing I'm going to say is the render opacity, which will be 0. And then since it's going to be displaying and after a couple seconds it's going to be disappearing again, so it's going to be 0, and then on 0.25 it's going to be 1. And then what I tested that I like more is at 250 you want to set it back to 0, and then on the 2.25 you want to set it to 1 again, so it does it gradually from this end, from left to right. It's going to be disappearing because you do want to have it fully in screen this whole time. And then the next one that we're going to add is a transform. And for the transform, we're going to use the translation and then on the x-axis. And we're going to start off with -120. I think a bit further, like so. So it's out of the screen, -180. And then we wanted to have it on 0. And then as well as here, it's still going to be 0 here. So we're going to add a keyframe for it. And then on this one, it should be back to the -180. So it's nicely out of the screen, like so. So now when we test it, pops in for a short while and then pops out. And I am going to make this render opacity to 0 for the text. Oh wait, never. I think we can leave it like that. That doesn't matter. So now let's go to the event graph. Then on the begin play, I'm going to add a new custom event. I'm going to call it play anim or play notify. It's better. And then we're going to drag it out and we say play animation with finished event. And why we're going to do that, because after it's finished, we want to remove the widget from the parent, so it's no longer taking up any performance and it no longer will be in the screen. So it's like a short pop-up notification that you'll get. So for a widget, it's going to be self. For the animation, we're going to drag out the fade in. Play mode should be in forward. Now when finished, I'm going to say remove from parent. And the target will be self, since it's the widget itself is going to be removing it. And compile it. So now we also want to have a way to call this in the key, because we want to call this here. Normally you can use casting for it, but since we already set it up with the interaction component to easily call it, I'm also going to make a function for that. So add new function, I say display popup, like so. And then on here you want to make a new input, which will be action name of type text. And first up we want to check is valid, and then immediately afterwards, if it's not valid, create widget. Why I'm creating the is valid is because I'm going to set this. Let me quickly set the widget here, popup, because I want to set it here, which is the popup ref. And then we're going to check if it's valid. The reason for it is because when it's being called, when it's already active, it's going to create it again. So you have two widgets on the exact same spot. So you see it displaying and it then plays it again. So you have two in the same time, which looks a bit weird. I'm going to, let me just show you guys what happens. I'm just going to remove it for now, so you have a visual of what could go wrong if you do it like that. So we're just doing like this. And then we say add to viewport. Perfect. Owning player, always use get play controller. Again, on this, drag out on the reroute node, play notify. So it's going to play the animation. Perfect. So for the action text, I didn't see we make it exposable. So if we go back to the widget right here, we want this text to be instant editable and expose on spawn. Now if you go back and we refresh this, you'll see the text is now, you can set it right here. Perfect. So now when we go back to the key, you can drag out here. You can say display popup. Clean it up a bit. Now for the action text, I'm going to use picked. Let me just make it a variable. It's probably better since you have more keys. This will be action text. Make it into editable. So now we can test it out. Picked up key 1. Now you see the text picked up key 1. And to show the problem I was just talking about, I have 3 keys next to each other and you pick them up really fast. You see them animations playing and then they go away one by one, which is not very, doesn't look very good. So what you're going to do, go back to the component and then add this in right here. So if it's not valid, which means the pop-up ref has not been created, we are going to immediately add it right here on the same instant, on the same reference that we've created, so it doesn't create it again. So when you now quickly pick them up, it's going to be the same widget, but then reappearing with the new text. So let's say I used picked up key 2 for this one. It's going to be displaying key 1, and as you see, it's not working correctly since it now displays key 1 instead of the actual name that it should be. So let's see what the problem is here. Now looking at the problem, I already see what it is, because when I go back to it, which is right here, we are skipping the whole part of set an action text, which means it skips the action text and just uses the previous one. So to counter that, I'm going to make a new custom event. I'm going to call it refresh. And then I'm going to set this text. So even if we're skipping it, it's probably not the most ideal way, but you can either remove this from expose on spawn and just set it like that, or just add this refresh. So we're going to go back, move this out a bit. This one as well. I'm going to add a new node here. I'm going to call it refresh. And clean it up a bit so it looks a bit better, like so. Perfect. And then we're gonna get the action text from this one. And now let's test it out to see if it works. Key 1, key 2, and back to key 1. So it's still using the same widget and you don't have lots of them, just keep creating. And you can open the door nicely. So that's about it. So now we've just made a full door system. I think you should call it an advanced door since we now have a key system. We can store the keys, so you can add this to a custom save system that we're probably covering in a later video in the series. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to clean this project up, and as well as the previous tutorials, I'm going to upload this to GitHub so you can get this project for yourself and even build on top of it or just use it to see how I did it. So yeah, if you have suggestions, let me know, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.